Welcome back, friends. Grab a seat, get comfortable, because today we're going to talk about something that took me years to fully understand. And once I did, it changed everything about how I approached my work, my income, and my life. It's the kind of lesson I wish somebody had sat me down and explained clearly when I was 25, instead of leaving me to figure it out the long, slow, expensive way. So let's dive right in and stay with me until the end because the last part of this talk might be the most important part of all. Success is something you attract, not something you chase after. Success is out there looking for a good place to land. So instead of running after it, you work on yourself instead. That's personal development. The major question to ask yourself on the job is not, what am I getting here? The major question is, what am I becoming here? It's not, what am I being paid? It's, who am I turning into while I do this work? Because true happiness isn't found in what you get. Happiness is found in who you become along the way. Now, there are plenty of things out there that can wreck your chances of doing well. We live in a fairly unpredictable world, so you've got to be not just wise, but careful too. And here's something I want you to write down. Take full responsibility for what happens to you. That's one of the highest forms of human maturity there is. Accepting full responsibility, that's the day you cross over from childhood into real adulthood. The day you finally accept full responsibility for your own life. Here's another note worth keeping. Learn to reap in the fall without apology. Without apology if things go well, and without complaint if they don't. I used to blame taxes. I'd look at what was left after everything got taken out and think, how am I supposed to do well with this? I used to blame the weather. I blamed the traffic. I blamed my car, and then the people who made it. I blamed the company I worked for and their policies. I blamed the training program. I blamed the economy. I blamed the whole community around me. That's a pretty impressive list of excuses for not doing well, isn't it? At the time, I actually thought it was a pretty solid list. I blamed everything outside of myself. And then I stumbled onto a little piece of philosophy that turned my whole life around. Write this one down carefully. It's not what happens to you that changes everything. It's what you decide to do about it. Somebody will say, sure, but you don't understand the disappointments I've been through. And I'll tell you, everybody's had their share of disappointment. Hard times aren't handed out only to the poor. Everyone gets a portion. The real difference is what you choose to do with it. It's not the weather either. I used to blame the weather until I realized it rains on the wealthy just as often as it rains on everybody else. The major key to your better future is you. Nobody else. You. I used to wonder why two people could work for the exact same company and one would end up making twice as much as the other. That question used to genuinely puzzle me. Maybe they were the same age, graduated from the same school, lived in the same community, worked for the same employer, sold the same products, dealt with the same traffic, faced the same daily headaches, and yet one person made a certain amount each month while the other made double that. So my question became, what actually creates that gap? What makes the real difference, not just doubling someone's income, but tripling it? I understand there's more than one path to doing well financially, but within this narrow category we call compensation, what separates the two? Now, if you can't create more time, and you truly can't, what could you create more of that would change your economic results? Here's the key word, and I want you to hold on to it. The word is value. You can't manufacture more time in a day, but you absolutely can create more value. And here's the very first lesson of economics, something everyone should learn from the moment they're old enough to understand what money is, how to earn it, how to hold on to it, and what to do with it once they have it. Lesson 1. We get paid primarily for the value we bring, not for the hours we put in. That's how compensation actually works. Bringing genuine value to the marketplace is how you get paid. Yes, it takes time to create that value, but you're compensated for the value itself, not simply for the time spent. Think about that for a moment, because it changes how you look at every single day you show up somewhere. Two people can stand at the same counter, work the same number of hours, wear the same uniform, and still walk away with completely different results because one of them figured out how to bring more value into those hours than the other one did. It's not about working faster. It's not about working longer. It's about becoming the kind of person capable of producing something worth more. So here's a question worth sitting with. Is it possible to become twice as valuable in the marketplace and earn twice as much in that same amount of time? Could you become 3 times as valuable and earn 3 times as much? Is that genuinely possible? The answer is yes, and it always comes with an if, doesn't it? Life runs on that word, if. It's absolutely possible to do far better in the marketplace if you're willing to go to work primarily on yourself. People have asked me for decades now, how do you build an above-average income? And my answer has always been the same. Become an above-average person. Develop an above-average handshake. It's astonishing how many people want to be successful, yet won't even work on something as simple as their handshake. They let it slide, never realizing how much it matters. Develop an above-average smile. Develop above-average enthusiasm. Develop an above-average genuine interest in other people. Develop an above-average intensity, a real drive to win. Those small shifts change everything. One of the most frustrating experiences you can put yourself through is chasing an above-average job with above-average pay without ever becoming an above-average person. That frustration is entirely avoidable. Work harder on yourself than you work on your job. If you had asked me at 25 years old whether I was a hard worker, I would have said absolutely, check my record. I worked as hard as anyone around. And that was true. I genuinely was a hard worker. But that was exactly my problem. I was pouring effort into my job, but I wasn't pouring effort into myself. That imbalance was the real reason for my lack of progress. Let me tell you, this distinction sounds small when you first hear it, but it is not small at all. Working hard on the job will earn you a paycheck. Working hard on yourself will earn you a future. Those are 2 very different pursuits, and most people only ever chase the first one. They show up early, they stay late, they never miss a shift, and they wonder why, year after year, their circumstances barely shift at all. Meanwhile, someone standing right next to them, doing what looks like the same job, is quietly reading in the evenings, quietly practicing a new skill on the weekends, quietly working on their attitude, their handshake, their vocabulary, their confidence. And 5 years later, the gap between the 2 of them is enormous, even though from the outside, it looked like they were doing the exact same work all along. If somebody handed you $1 million today, you'd better become a millionaire quickly in terms of your habits and your thinking, or that money will not stick around long. Somebody once said if you gathered up every dollar in the world and divided it equally among every person alive, it would eventually end up right back in the same pockets it started in. That's a fairly remarkable thought when you sit with it. Money finds its way to the person who has become the kind of person who knows how to keep it, grow it, and use it wisely. Hand that same amount to someone who hasn't done the inner work, and it slips through their fingers no matter how much you give them. Some people go looking for more money, but they look in entirely the wrong direction. They say, I need more money, so I'm going to go pressure my boss. Well, bosses aren't exactly known for spontaneously tripling someone's wages out of the goodness of their heart. I've never once seen a boss get overwhelmed with excitement and suddenly triple somebody's salary. That's just not how the system tends to work. So that's not really the lever worth pulling. Some people say, fine, I'll go on strike for more. Well, the trouble with that particular game is once you start it, it never really ends. You end up needing to strike again and again. And what you get through demand alone tends to be small, scattered pieces, barely enough to keep pace. And inflation has a nasty habit of outrunning that whole strategy anyway. Someone demands a 10% raise, inflation climbs 12%, and now they're behind by 2. It becomes a game with no finish line. That path might help you survive, but it will not lead you to real success. It's not what you get through clever tricks. It's not what you get through demand. It's what you get through genuine performance that truly counts. For your circumstances to change, you have to change first. Life and business really do move a lot like the changing seasons. It's one of the best comparisons I know. You cannot change the seasons themselves, but you can absolutely change yourself. And there are four major lessons life keeps trying to teach us, tied directly to those seasons. Lesson 1. Learn how to handle your winters. Winter follows fall with total reliability. Some winters are long, some are short, some are brutal, some pass easily, but they always keep coming. You must learn to handle the nights because they follow the days without fail. You must learn to handle difficulty because it follows opportunity just as surely. You must learn to handle downturns because they follow periods of progress the way they have for thousands of years. That pattern isn't going away. The real lesson to learn is simply how to handle it when it arrives. And there are all kinds of winters. The winter when nothing seems to make sense anymore. The winter when everything falls apart at once. The winter when a plan turns completely upside down. The winter when something just won't work, no matter how hard you try. The winter when the money's run out and your heart feels broken all at the same time. Those are winter seasons, and there are many varieties: economic winters, social winters, deeply personal winters, when your heart feels shattered into pieces and the nights stretch on far longer than they should, and even your prayers seem to barely lift off the ground. That's what winter feels like. But disappointments like these are normal. They're simply part of life. The real question is always, how do you respond to it? How do you face the winters, the setbacks, the difficult stretches that inevitably arrive? You can't tear January off the calendar and make it disappear. But here's what you absolutely can do. You can grow stronger. You can grow wiser. You can grow better. The winters themselves won't change, but you can. And that's ultimately how your life changes. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for greater skill. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for deeper wisdom. That's the real key. So that's lesson 1. Learn how to handle the winters. And let me add this because it matters. The people who do best in life are not the people who somehow avoided winter altogether. Nobody avoids it. Every single person you admire, every person who built something worth building, walked through their own share of hard seasons. The difference was never the absence of winter. The difference was what they did with the time. Some people spend their winters complaining about the cold. Others spend their winters reading, planning, sharpening their skills, getting ready for what comes next. When spring finally arrives, both types of people are standing in the same field. But only one of them is actually ready to plant. Here's lesson 2. Learn how to take full advantage of the spring. Spring represents opportunity, and it always follows winter. That's about as fitting a place as you could imagine putting it. Right after the hardest season comes the season of new growth. And how reliably does spring follow winter? Every single year, without fail, for thousands upon thousands of years. You can almost set your watch by it. Opportunity, in the same way, always eventually arrives. Days follow nights. Isn't that a wonderful pattern? Opportunity follows difficulty every single time. But here's what you have to learn to do. Underline these 2 words: take advantage. You must learn to genuinely take advantage of the spring when it arrives. Just because spring rolls around doesn't automatically mean you'll have a good harvest come fall. You have to actually do something with that season while it's here. In fact, you really only have 2 options in life when it comes to opportunity: planting during the spring, or begging during the fall, or finding someone else willing to do the planting for you. Those are really about the only paths available. And here's another piece worth remembering. Take advantage of your springs quickly because you only get a handful of them. Only so many spring seasons are handed to each of us over the course of a lifetime. They do not come around forever. Life, in the grand scheme, is fairly brief. So read everything you can get your hands on about what to do with your springs while they're here, because they don't last long, and they run out faster than you'd expect. Learn also how to protect what you've planted all through the summer. You have to take care of what you start. The moment you plant your garden in the spring, you can count on the busy insects and the stubborn weeds showing up, trying to take it from you. They absolutely will try if given the chance. You have to learn how to prevent those intruders from stealing everything good you've worked to start. That's one of the real challenges of life. Every value worth having must be actively defended. Political values, social values, community values, family values, the values inside a marriage, the values behind a real friendship, the values that hold a business together. Every garden, in every sense of the word, has to be tended carefully throughout the summer. Summer is a season people underestimate because it doesn't feel as dramatic as winter, and it doesn't feel as exciting as spring. But summer is where most of the real work quietly happens. It's the unglamorous middle stretch, the daily watering, the daily weeding, the daily attention nobody applauds you for. And yet, skip the summer work, and everything you planted in spring withers before fall ever arrives. That's true of a business. It's true of a marriage. It's true of your own health and character. The people who reap the richest harvests are almost never the ones who had the easiest spring. They're the ones who refused to neglect their summer. And here's the fourth major lesson worth learning. Learn how to reap in the fall without complaint. That, more than anything else, is the real difference in how a life turns out. It's not what happens to you. It's what you choose to do about it. So here's one of the most important questions I can leave you with tonight. Starting tomorrow, what are you actually going to do that changes the direction of your life? That's a serious question worth sitting with. What will you do, beginning tomorrow, that genuinely makes a difference? Because if you don't do something different starting tomorrow, guess what happens? It stays exactly the same. And here's the honest truth. If you want a fairly accurate preview of what your next 5 years will look like, just take a good look at the last 5. The next 5 tend to mirror the last 5, unless you make a real deliberate change. Change it all, change a little, change something meaningful, or don't change anything at all. That choice belongs entirely to you. But it's worth knowing this. On any given day you choose, you have the power to change the entire direction of your life. Not next year, not someday, any day you decide. So here's what I want to leave you with. What can you do, starting tomorrow, that would genuinely make a difference? That's a good question to carry with you. Take some real time this week and sit with these ideas honestly. Think about where you've been placing the blame in your own life, and whether it might be time to place it somewhere closer to home instead. Think about the value you're bringing into the world each day, and whether there's room to bring more. Think about which season you're standing in right now, winter, spring, summer, or fall, and what that season is actually asking of you. Handling winters with patience, seizing springs while they last, protecting what you've planted through the long stretch of summer, and reaping your harvest in the fall with quiet gratitude, without apology and without complaint, whichever way it turns out. I want to leave you with one final thought before we close today. None of this requires perfection. Nobody handles every winter gracefully. Nobody takes full advantage of every single spring that comes their way. I certainly didn't, not for a long stretch of my own life. What matters is the direction you're facing, not how far along the road you've already traveled. A person quietly working on their handshake, their attitude, their reading habits, their sense of responsibility, day after day, will eventually outpace someone with far more talent who never bothered to start. That's simply how it works. Consistency, applied over the seasons of a real life, adds up to something extraordinary. So don't wait for ideal conditions. Don't wait for the economy to shift, or for your boss to notice you, or for some external circumstance to finally line up in your favor. Start with the person in the mirror. Work on your handshake this week. Work on your attitude this week. Pick up a book that stretches you. Write down what's truly turned you on and what's turned you off. and let that list guide your next decision. That's really the whole journey, isn't it? Becoming someone stronger, someone wiser, someone genuinely more valuable, season after season, year after year, until the life you're living finally reflects the person you've worked so hard to become. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and I look forward to sitting down with you again soon.